So now I want to introduce our friend Scott R. Davis to talk about the PLC straw poll. Scott is an elected judge of elections and is running for constable in Lower Paxton Township, Dauphin County. He began working on campaigns and later joined with the Young Republicans of Pennsylvania. He has proudly served as judge of elections since 2016, and prior to that was the elected majority inspector since 2013 on a single write-in vote. Outside of public service, Scott is an innovative senior technology professional with over 20 years in leading IT infrastructure and network security compliance for organizations of all sizes. Scott serves as the senior security and sales engineer with LionGuard, bringing his in-depth knowledge of multi-year business planning, cybersecurity planning, technology documentation, workflow design, project management, and network design to MSPs around the globe. In addition to being part of LionGuard, Scott also produces and records a weekly video podcast called The Morning Breach and serves as the Chief Information Officer for the Pennsylvania Leadership Council. Scott was born and raised in central Pennsylvania, where he continues to live today with his wonderful wife, Kelly, and their 3 children. Ladies and gentlemen, Scott R. Davis.
You know, this year is unique on many levels. But first, I have to say this is the first year I actually felt like John Gizzi. And I say that because I get to speak on the podium or on the stage twice, and I don't have to worry about the clock. With that, I do want to thank everyone for being here, especially the hotel staff. We've heard it all weekend. They're short-staffed, they're killing it, they're doing a great job, so let's give them the credit they deserve. The conference wouldn't have been successful without the great volunteers that we had between the straw poll, registration, and everything in between. There's 2 wives that need special credit, my wife, Kelly, and Loman's wife, Carol, for putting up with us the last couple weeks. And mostly, every one of you, because you came. This is the 10th year of the Pennsylvania straw poll. It should be the 11th. And that's why there was the one question that still had the year 2019 in it. But when I came to Loman and presented the idea of bringing back the straw poll, it was all about election integrity and taking the practices of really what we all believe a fair and secure election should look like and present it here in a room full of conservatives. With that, they all use the same device. You need an ID to vote because you have to be registered for the conference, and believe it or not, we are looking at your name tag when you walk up to vote. You only get 1 vote. You just have to be an attendee. But I will say there's one difference. We don't verify your citizenship, and I'm not sure the US does either. So let's get into the poll. Let's skip ahead a couple. I kind of ran through some of these. Key points, we collected 244 ballots from Friday morning through Saturday. Mentioned voter integrity. There were 34 Pennsylvania counties represented, including 10 states, Pennsylvania, Virginia, New Jersey, Michigan, Louisiana, Florida, Texas, Wisconsin, Illinois, and Oklahoma. I also had the opportunity of speaking to someone from Canada that was in attendance as well. So the demographics. Half of the room over 55, and the other half under 55. Kind of makes sense. But I think the amazing number on here is that really small slice in number 6, which represents the 6 people that voted that were under 17. So those are future conservatives, future voters that are in the room. As is typical on the next slide, you're going to see that it is very male dominant. Ladies, we still have to work on this. There was a lady that I spoke with that is working on starting a women's caucus or a council. Definitely recommend that. Whatever we can do to raise that women percentage in the room is always a great thing. The counties, Cumberland, Dauphin, Chester, Allegheny, and Lebanon round out our top 5. Yeah, way to go, Cumberland. Way to knock off Dauphin County there. Fiscal and social conservatives continue to be the trend, really what everyone believes. We did have one person that was a jokester that said they're a liberal. They were quickly promptly thrown out of the building. We do not track. These are anonymous, I swear. This one here, I really like. So that big green piece, that's your first time. And I think it resembled it last night at dinner when we asked, whose was it the first time attending the PLC? And the majority of the room had their hands up. So we continue the tradition because we constantly bring new people in. And I hope you guys come back and join us for year 2, 3, 4, and more. Going into the next slide, what do you consider the most important in an elected official? And that is the willingness, adhering to conservative principles regardless of the outcome. And we have to stick with that. If you really think about what this pie resembles, is we need to adhere to our principles because the other side is. The other side's not only sticking to their principles that are really horrible principles, but they're vocal and they tell us what their principle and their side is. We need to start being vocal with our side as well. Going into the Commonwealth results, we're pretty split on the overall direction that Pennsylvania are going. So there's some of us that feel we are going in the right way, but there's still many that don't feel we're going the right way. If that's simply due to the fact of the fighting that we've had for the last 3 years or 7 years, or 6 years, 7 years, whatnot, but for the representatives in the room, for the legislators in the room, we have to get this more in line and get back on the right track. Going to the next slide. What is the most important issue facing the General Assembly in 2021? I think election integrity sums it up, as I think every speaker has touched on the topic, at least everyone that I've heard today and yesterday. You do have pension reform, budget, also rounding in, and because of the COVID year that we had in between, there was both election integrity and voter integrity. So we're not just checking the elections, we're checking the voters too. Going on to the next one, write-ins. Some of the other items that we had showing: health insurance, courts, philosophical directions, children manipulation in school, that is a growing one, court packing, school choice, and family growth. In the next slide, we discuss, do we believe that Republicans in the state legislature are standing firm and holding the conservative ideas? And here you can see we need to do a better job. Just like the slide a couple ago, this kind of matches that same messaging, that we have to get our message, we have to hold that message true and hold it strong. Because the other side's able to unite around these horrible policies, and when they gain the power, they pass it. So often when we gain the power, then we begin the infighting of it doesn't go far enough or it's not quite there. We have to start somewhere, and that's coming together. The next slide was a fun one. In your opinion, would you support the automatic audit of every election? Now, I asked this one simply due to the fact that the past is the past. And I came from, I raised my kids that the truth is always going to come out. It doesn't matter if I find out the next day or I find out 12 years later. The truth is going to come out. And eventually the truth of everything that's happened in our past is going to come out. But what we do need to see is that automatic audit of every election. It just needs to happen. And it doesn't matter what the result is. And as you see, Pac-Man is agreeing. All right, next slide. In your opinion, do you believe the social media sites, big tech, is biased against conservatives? It's real. It's real. It's not quite Pac-Man real, but it is pretty real. And the next slide really threw me off. And I put this one in here because I wanted to kind of gauge how real it is. So here you can see, are you using big tech social media less, roughly the same, or more? And roughly the same, that's really where I expected to be the main one. But the fact that people are using social media less should send a message to big tech. because we aren't your product anymore. And we don't want to be manipulated and shown what you believe to be real news. In the next slide, we get into the federal results. What's the most important issue facing the United States? I think it's a no-brainer. It's immigration. There you can kind of see government spending and the size of government round that out. The next slide, Republicans in Congress, how do you think they're doing? About 50-50. 50-50. Right now, I think Republicans are kind of pigeonholed. They can't really do too much, but we have to hold firm because it's a very thin line between chaos and maintaining. The next slide's really sad. And I don't like putting sad slides in, but I have 3 kids, like was mentioned, and I want my kids to grow up, and I want your children and grandchildren to grow up in a better place than we left it. And as you see by the graph, you know, about the same to worse off 50%, roughly. Like, this is one that we really need to put attention to because it's all about the children. Now, the 2 questions everybody here is waiting for, and I intentionally put them in last. The Senate primary race were held today. Who would you support? Sean Parnell came out victorious here. And again, this is a really early forecast. And the last one for the governor primary race, Doug Mastriano had a lot of support. And there you can see. Lou, Dan, William, Charlie, and the other Dan follow it out. So the last question I have for everybody, and this is an open question, there's not a slide for it, but did you love PLC 2021 or what? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Scott. And as we wind things up here, I wanted everybody to know, for folks who would like to have their picture taken with Congressman Chaffetz in the exhibit hall out the door and to the right after the event, there will also be an election integrity workshop in the exhibit hall. So thanks to everybody for attending, and please join us for the 2022 Pennsylvania Leadership Conference, No Fooling, April 1 and 2, 2022, right here at the Radisson Penn Harris Convention Center. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful day.